mom signed a piece of paper for me to leave school and go to work. It used to be Sambo's on Cantrell. And I started cooking there, flipping eggs. Well, I went from there within 6 months to working at the Little Rock Country Club. That's how much I love cooking. Well, I ended up being a professional chef. I actually opened up the Holiday Inn Airport way back in the Packet House that used to be on Cantrell. And I trained on the Gary Kitchen, who was fresh seafood, so shrimp and any type of seafood. I'm very well with it, and I was so good that I won the Junior Chef of the Year like 3 years straight. Because out of a demi-glaze sauce, you're supposed to be able to make like 40 sauces out of one demi-glaze. I could make like 48. I had some soul sauces that I was good. I was just that good that my special was on the menu out at the Holiday Inn, even when I come back home from my trip with the federal government. The federal government provided me with a trip all around this country. Some call it diesel therapy, who really know about it. Okay? Because I was a shot caller, I ended up going to federal prison. In federal prison, I went to 5 because I was a shot caller. Started off in FCI Memphis. From there, I went to Lewisburg in Pennsylvania, and from there they sent me to Raybrook, New York. And I was up there for a while. They sent me back when they opened up Forest City, and it was just brick and dirt when I first went there. And from there I did my last 2 years at Seagoville, Texas. So they gave me free charge all around the country, okay? Because I felt like I was a shot caller. And I come to realize that I was only acting on some of the things that I learned. Like, for instance, I was sitting there and I was smiling. Jeff put his arms around me and patted me on the back. Okay? This is how I got involved in the gangs. I left in Arkansas because I couldn't keep the drug habit and go to Southern California. And my brother DeWitt picked me up, and I'm thinking Hollywood. Well, we went past all those signs. And I ended up in the projects in Watts, in the PJs. And I'll never forget this one dude that used to come out, and he always had a pocket full of money, and his arms was like this, and his pants was sagging down around his backside, and he would always come out walking around like this here, and and I'd be like, God, I was sitting on the back getting high on the back step. I'm getting high, like, this dude here is crazy, But I never forget this day. A car pulled up, and about 3-4 dudes jumped out. They were like, hey, cuz, they took my car. They took my car, man, and whatever. And I remember this dude said, how you gonna let them dudes take your car? You don't love your hood. And this dude said, man, I love my hood. And he reached in his thing and pulled out a gun and said, bam! Shot himself in the head. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, they rolled him up, put him in the car, took him, I guess, to the hospital. 3 days later, where's the bill? Right there in their back, sitting there getting high, because I failed to realize that the drugs that I was running from here in Arkansas, you get them for just a fraction of the price in California. So I was going to the drugs. So I'm sitting out there getting high. Well, here this dude come and pull back up in the car, and he get out of the car, and he had a big band-aid wrapped around his head. And I'm like, this dude that shot himself in the head. Well, there go dude with the big arms. Walk in again, He walked up to him. He said, I told you I love my hood, man. And this dude grabbed him, and he hugged him, and he said, I love you, cuz. Right then, whatever they had, I wanted it. Because my father raised me with 6 brothers that you shouldn't hug another man, which is another myth, okay, that tormented me because I had 6 brothers and I never felt comfortable with hugging them. But when I seen these 2 dudes hug each other, I'm like, oh my goodness, I want that. So they had me. So when we talk about kids getting involved in gangs and their reasons, you can't pinpoint no reason. You have to look at what's going on in the child's life, because it could be any reason that pull a child away, or even an adult away to get involved in gangs. But the gangs had me right there. And I never forget, I got in trouble in Southern California, and I come home and I'm like, hey, I was getting high. I walked out on my back porch and I took all my drug paraphernalia and I threw it. I'm not getting high no more. And I stopped getting high, and I started selling drugs, which was probably the worst thing in the world, because I became, just like I was addicted to the drugs, I was addicted to selling them, and the money, and the fast life. And I found myself going out to the club at night 2-3 times a week, spending $2,000-$3,000, 50 of us. And I'm telling you this bad part because I need you to see this person who was back there, and I never forget that when he was talking about the young lady, out there in the Southwest Little Rock, they had some Bloods out there on Butler, and we had one that had did something over around the area where we stayed, so we was going to get him. And we had about 4 cars, and we were loaded. And when I say loaded, we were loaded. We were going to put in work right there on that corner. And I never forget, as he said, as we were coming up, this guy was hanging up this sign, and there was 2 kids out there, and it said something of Christ. And I never forget, something just washed over me and said, you can't do this. But now right by them was the same guys that was on the same lot that we were going to get. And there was no way for us to get them without getting this young lady. Now, I didn't think about that day. None. Like you said, I didn't think about it until I got a chance. We was out at Centers, and we were talking about it. And I got a chance to meet the young lady whose husband was hanging up the sign. And let me tell you, it was nothing like being able to talk to her and say, it was because of you that my life, I didn't do what I thought. I didn't go to prison for the rest of my life. Because surely what we were going to do, I would have never got out of prison. Okay? Because we planned to do this, to get them right at their week, right when they were weak and out there. And I tell you, I hugged this lady, and she's a doll. She don't know the part that she played in helping save my life, them being there. So, and after that I come and I got involved in the drugs, and I sold drugs, and probably one of the worst persons on the street. Here comes Steve Navoychik, coming in my hood showing signs of young men and women that was killed in the game. And so I told my homeboy, I'm like, this dude here think he's slick. I don't know, we don't have no black guys riding over here in our neighborhood like that there. Here he is, he's white police. I know he's a narcotic. Let's get him. I did. I put a $10,000 bounty out on Steve's head. And they were waiting for him to come. Well, this day, he came that morning. And by the time the homeboys that got around there, my son them had walked out and was like, Quarter, Daddy, I know all of these people on here. Now just think now. Mm-hmm. My babies were 5 and 6, and they knew about 8 dead people on this board. And so Raphael bust in the house, and when he was excited, he couldn't talk. He would always study either he was lying or he was excited. And he would study. And he was I'm like, what, Raphael? That man got quarter on that picture. I'm like, what? Y'all need to leave him alone. He'll police. He ain't no police there. So I never forget, I come out and I got a chance to meet one of my good friends, Steve, and who has been a good friend ever since. When I thought that at one point I couldn't read and write because of a myth. The myth is you go to school, and it's what all the folks say, you just go to school, you're going to be all right. Well, I did. And I wasn't all right because I didn't learn anything. I would go to school and put my head on my desk, and I couldn't read and write. I could cook, and I could do ice carvings of anything you draw me. Okay? I would do whole murals of the ocean and make sharks out of cucumbers and palm trees out of carrots and bell peppers and do the whole mural. And I won the Junior Chef Award 3 years straight. But I couldn't read or write. And it stopped me from moving to where I was supposed to really go in life. And but got a chance to meet Steve, and he was like, I'm sorry. It was a turning point for me because I came out and seen these kids that I had loved and on a board, landing, they were dead, never coming back. Quarter, I had just left him. I put him out in my car on Wolf Street. Put him out, I come and pick him up. He was standing on Wolf Street with his shirt out.